everybody. Well, we're going to be talking as soon as this other group joins us. I'm going to talk. I guess if I lumped a lot of this together about the websites that deal with Facebook, Twitter, blogging, and Wikipedia, and any one of these, anybody that's sitting there in the room can create them in about 5 to 10 minutes. So, Katrina, I'd be interested to know what you would like to do. Do you want to promote a business or something about yourself or some of your interest, or what would that be?
No, it would be more business oriented.
Okay, and for an online business or a local business?
No, probably for a local business or outreach program is what I would. Something more along the lines of like an outreach program or nonprofit or something to that extent.
Okay, because any one of these that we're talking about will work, and I'll try to tie them all together. The person that scheduled it asked me not to spend too much time on Facebook. I'm going to mention a few things about it, and part of that reason is, and you probably don't know what the educational situation is. Do they have a Facebook page for the schools there, or do you know?
Ooh, I think they actually do have a Facebook page, at least for the elementary school. I'm not quite sure about the high school or vocational one, but...
So is it more like for information about the school, and there's an event, a dance coming up, a social event, or, that type of thing?
I don't think that I've ever personally been on it, so I'm not 100% sure,
Sorry.
but I don't know what exactly they post on there.
Annabelle, what's your experience? Do you have a Facebook page?
I do.
You're saying that? I'm chuckling a little bit. It's like, yeah, I do. What does that mean?
I don't know. What do you want?
Well, what I mean is some people, it seems to be two camps. People that love Facebook, and I have a granddaughter that she can't go more than an hour unless she's looking at her Facebook page or posting something about what's going on in her life. She's got, what I looked it up, 450 some friends that are on there, and it's personal things that are posted. So is that kind of what you do? You have some friends and you share things?
Yeah, I'm not really on it that much. Maybe like once a week.
How about other people in your family? Are they on it?
What was that?
Are there other people in your family that are on Facebook?
Yeah, it's most of my friends are family that's around the country.
Yeah, it's funny because I was a teacher for 20 years, and we lived in Arizona at the time, and we had an exchange student from the Philippines. 35 years later comes this invite from this person who I have no clue it is, and I'm about ready to reject it. And I went, wait a minute, because she had married and had kids. And I looked at the first name and I said, could that be? And sure enough, it was from 35 years ago. And that's how we connected, and now have made a reconnection on it. So that's pretty neat when those kind of things happen. So what about Twitter? Either of you use Twitter?
No, it's confusing.
It is confusing.
I will try to make it very simple today. I mean, I will show you some very simple things you can do. And the reason I'm asking you some of these questions is I try to, I travel around the U.S. and also in Europe, and I do a lot of workshops with libraries, with school districts, with superintendents, with teachers, with students, and I try to find out the background that they have, and then I try to customize it the best I can to kind of talk about how it applies to what they do. So that's why, and if you feel uncomfortable with some questions that I ask, just say, I'm not going to answer that or whatever. So, Katrina, do you work? Are you a student, or do you mind me asking?
I work, and I'm a student right now. I work for Children's Services through the state of Alaska, and I go to UAA, and I'm studying social work with a minor in anthropology.
So do you have to travel to go, or is it an online or a video piece, or what?
I'm doing the online version right now, and I'm just finishing up some of the more simple courses that I have to do. Eventually, I'll have to go take some classes on campus. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe there's something a little bit more vocational in the next year or so that I don't have to go up there for courses.
Yeah, that's actually how I did after I got my bachelor's. I did my master's, a few things that way. We were in Arizona, and they had some on-site, so we could go there. We didn't have to travel, but then I had to go back to Flagstaff, Arizona for about 6 classes on-site.
Yeah. So did you just do them all in one term?
No, it took 3 years because I was teaching full time at the time, and it's tough. So in the evenings we do the class, and then in the summers we go up there for 8 weeks and take the classes. And it took 3 summers to do that to finish my master's. So I think what I'm going to do, because we're still waiting for them, Chris is working on that, is we talked a little bit about Facebook. Do either of you use it in any way to connect with businesses?
I don't have a Facebook, so
no.
Well, because there's 2 trends or 2 ways to go on Facebook. One is the personal piece, the family piece, the friend piece, and the other is a business piece. And Facebook has recently, in the last 6 months, really started to change that there's a whole business presence. I find it very irritating because I use it for friends, but I also every morning, and people know this, that I will post 5 to 6 things dealing with education. And people that follow, there are some professionally that I'm friends with, and they will look and read some of those articles. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize you can do in Facebook is you can put information up there about articles of things. For example, in your job, Katrina, you could, if you found some research that was based upon something in child services and research about a new program or something that somebody's doing, or new funding, you could share those kind of things. And there's good and bad about it. The ads are starting to appear on it, which I find extremely frustrating. But one nice thing is you can click a little button on there and say, I don't want these ads that are on here, and use it that way. So it's, Katrina, I'll ask you one last question, then I won't bug you anymore about the Facebook thing. You just don't see any need of, why do I really need this in my life?
No, I think it's definitely a helpful website and everything, and I think it's especially helpful to communicate with people who don't live near you or to outreach. But my problem with it was that I was just checking it so often, and it felt like I could be more productive with my time than to. So I guess I would use it for business purposes if I had a business or if I had something that I was trying to promote, like a nonprofit. But personally, I just think it's a waste of personal use of time.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I'll give you an example of, it's a business, but it's not, and I'll explain it. I do some work with the Walt Disney Company in an unofficial capacity. And I have a website called Disney Science, and we work with schools, and we take all of the things of how they make thrill rides and apply the physics piece to it, and that's how we do math and physics and science things in the classroom. Well, the outgrowth of that from 2 years ago is now something called My Disney Class. And weekly, we give teachers ideas of what to do. We wanted to have a presence on Facebook. So what we have is a website that is Facebook-based. That's facebook.com/MyDisneyClass. So if you did that, you would have Facebook/MyChildServices or My Consulting Company or whatever it happens to be. And it's a really good way to promote what you're doing. So I don't know, is your goal eventually to do something, privately in your own business, or work? I assume you're working for the state.
I am working for the state now. Eventually, my goal is to have a nonprofit organization working with disadvantaged children. So I know that I'm
see, that's the way you use Facebook when you get there, and then you just say to people, hey, do a like or comment, and that's the one thing that I really like about Facebook is a little button. If you're not familiar with it, there's a button there that says like, and it just means I like what you said, I like what you're doing, but there's also a little box in there. I think it's limited to 100 words or something like that, but where you make a comment. So if you posted up something on there, it would say, or you could say, hey, here's some new research, like I was suggesting before, and put that up there, and then people would be able to make comments on that. Say, hey, I really like that, or did you know about this website? And you could put that piece that's in there. So it's a way that you can do your brand. So if you're going to do your own nonprofit, by the way, this is a side note, I did a nonprofit about a year and a half ago. Most frustrating and financially unrewarding process I ever did. I'm just going to tell you 30 seconds worth. It is extremely expensive to form a nonprofit. So get some investors who will pay for all those upfront costs because you have to either incorporate or do an LLC. Well, you don't have to, but for your own protection. But the best thing to do is incorporate. And attorney fees are unreal. And I don't know if you're familiar with Zoom. It's a website company, and they'll go through and help you start your business. But even at that, I spent $1,000 with them to incorporate and to set up the nonprofit. Then the second part of it is getting approved by the federal government. That gets really expensive because in order to file for your 501c, it's based on how much income you think you're going to make. And unfortunately, the more income you're going to make, the more you have to pay in this fee to get your 501c so you have a nonprofit. So it's like this money pit hole that there was a large amount of dollars that went into it. So, find some friends or do a Kickstarter or in some way so you have $3,000-4,000 to just do all the paperwork and pay the attorney fees before you get started. It was a hard lesson I learned, and we honestly couldn't afford to do our nonprofit. So we just had to,
I have a question.
1 year later.
So can you fundraise before you have all the paperwork done for your nonprofit?
You bet. And that's the mistake I made. I didn't do that. I knew what part of my costs were going to be. I did not know how much it was going to be in there for filing for that 501c. And it literally took me 3 months to do the paperwork, and Zoom was really good about it. But the detail on the forms that they want for your corporation and then your 501c is unreal. I mean, I have a book that is probably 2 inches thick of the paperwork. Now, a lot of it is just forms. In other words, you fill in your name, you fill in your mission, and it populates and puts all that stuff on there. But there were just so many times I got frustrated with it, and I said, I'm going to do this, and I finally got done with it. And then they said, okay, how much income do you think you'll have? Well, I had no clue. So I said 25,000. That was a mistake because then when I was going to file, I had to pay this higher fee. And I found out later it would have been better to say I'm only going to have, I think $10,000 was the break point. I'd have been better to say I'm only going to make $10,000 in my first year and then gradually increase, and you have to do a 5-year budget. And then the fee was significantly less. I want to say $500 to $800 to file. So that would have been a better way to get started, and then slowly increase as the income goes. But I found out the hard way on a lot of those. So if you know anybody else there in Craig, that's incorporated, talk to them and ask them what that's all about. And you can contact Zoom. You can go on their website or call that 800 number and talk to them about it, what all the costs are. And as I said, I naively just jumped in and made 3 payments to them. And they also give you access to an attorney, which I found very helpful. That's where I got a lot of my good information. And that's all part of that well, it's $995. They keep it under $1,000 to make it sound better. And then you can do monthly calls with them. So it's a good way to incorporate, to put those things together.
Okay.
So hello, this is Chris with the Alveo conferencing support. Sorry to interrupt. Nana's not going to be able to join in today. The firewall issues they're having are too severe. I'm going to have to get in touch with their tech company and get this all sorted out. The good news is that this is being recorded, so they'll be able to view the recording, and they'll probably email you with any questions they have.
Okay. And Chris, I'll also send to you and to Darcia the PowerPoints I'll be using, so they'll have a copy of that also. And we'll just continue with these folks here and just with the information that we have.
All right. Thank you very much, Howie. Take care.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys have any further problems.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me show you something, and the two of you are going to think this is the weirdest thing you've ever seen, but have you ever heard of something, and this is a takeoff of Facebook, of something called fake book?
No.
It is, I'll show you some slides here in a second. It is used in schools a lot because a lot of schools ban Facebook. And it has a lot to do, I don't know if you know the policy, but if the kids are under 13, there has to be parental permission to do that. So they get into all kinds of legal problems. And Facebook, I'm going to pull up and show you a couple things, and then we'll talk about Twitter, and then I'll move into blogs, and then on the wikis. So I'm going to, you have to bear with me a second here while I have to switch screens, so stand by. And you should be seeing up there now that says Educational Web 2.0. Do you see that screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to jump ahead on, these are little icons for all of the social media things. And I'm specifically going to talk about something called microblogging at first, but I want to just mention on Facebook. So of those icons that are up there, do any of you, are you able to, the F I think you realize is the Facebook, but do you recognize any of the other ones that are up there or maybe that you use?
Yeah, Instagram, Pinterest, Google, Skype, YouTube.
So what do you do with Instagram?
Instagram is actually what I chose to do instead of Facebook. I post pictures of my kids on there for family and close friends to see, and that's more like a personal, just timeline.
Yeah. Annabelle, what do you use Instagram?
Yeah, I do. It's pretty much the same thing, just like a timeline of stuff I do and where I go and what I see.
Are you guys familiar with a new one out there called Snapchat?
Yes.
That's pretty amazing. It's hard. I have to stay up on this stuff, and I jokingly say I try all these things, and what I've done is I've used most of these that are up there. The V is for Vine, and I've got 3 that I use because I just can't take the time to spend the time on all those. So I found that Twitter works really well for me. Facebook works really well. Do you know what the one on the second row with the P is?
Pinterest.
And do you use that, either of you?
Yes.
How do you use it? Personally, or do you just sharing things, or what?
I use it to find recipes mainly.
I use it to plan my wedding.
That she does not having.
Yeah.
So, okay, I won't go there. So you use it more as from a consumer standpoint rather than a contribution standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the power of Pinterest because and my wife and her good friend, they don't contribute anything, but they find they're both seamstresses and they do a lot of craft work and things. They find tons of things that are on there. So all of those are different social media things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump through some of these slides. I want to go to, that's the ranking of the social media sites that are up on the screen. So I'm curious, just by looking at all those, tell me a couple that you don't know about.
I think I know about all of
Like you never heard of it.
I've never heard of Get Glue.
Or cut.
Okay.
or Orkut, or Multiply, or Meetup, or DeviantArt.
Okay, some of those, and this is based on about a year ago in the rankings. You see what number 1 is and what number 2 is. Do both of you know what LinkedIn is?
Yeah, it's more of a professional site for.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a job, that's where you need to put your things. Because as a social media website, if you're looking for a job, even in your community, or maybe you're going to say, well, okay, I'm going to go to Anchorage or Juneau or some other place larger, you basically can post your resume and your information on there. The latest research has 49% of companies that hire people find them first on LinkedIn. Now, I'm not going to really talk about it, but you've probably heard of it, but check it out because you can put a resume up there. There's a free part and there's a part that you can pay for. So the reason I just have those up there, there's a lot of things that are adult sites, and I don't mean that in an inappropriate way. They're designed as communication sites for sometimes singles, sometimes married, sometimes widowers. So a lot of those are very specialized sites that are up there. That's a link of what you can see as how far ahead Facebook is. That's back from a few years ago, as far as the other. And Annabelle, can you read that? I don't know how. Do they have are you looking at a big screen or a little screen? I don't know what you're looking at.
It's a big screen.
Okay, can you read the title across the top there? Okay.
Half of the world's online population uses Facebook. And it says
that just boggles my little head that half of the world, and then they said uses it, but I did a little research on that. That's a stretch. There's a lot of people, just like what I don't remember, one of you said that you have it, but you don't use it much. And that's it. People have got an account, but they've never used it that's on there. So let me, here's another statistic, and I don't know what your community is as far as seniors, if you have a large or small group, but seniors have found, and by that I mean over 55, have found it is a great way to connect. Any number of ways of things, of get-togethers, or some live in senior communities and so on. So I am going to, and that's some of the things that you can do with it. And again, I will send this to Chris, and I will tell you at the end of the time today of where you can download this if you want to, just to, because all of the links are on there. So like if you clicked on online community, that would take you to that. But it's basically all this we're going to talk about today is kind of to build this community and sharing interests. We've already talked about finding out about others, what people in Pinterest do, and different ways that will interact and connect. And we'll show you some ways on that. So I'm going to take the next few minutes and just talk about microblogging. And microblogging means it's a small part of the big social media. And I'm going to use Twitter as an example, and I'll go there in a few minutes. Either one of you, tell me what you know or don't know about Twitter. I mean, you know the name, but what is it? One of you said it was frustrating, or I don't remember the word you used.
I don't know. I think it's really confusing. Like, I've tried to use it before.
Confusing, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is?
I didn't really know, like, how to get friends, or what kind of friends I wanted, or what to tweet, or what to retweet, so...
Okay, I will cover all those in just a few minutes. The one thing that Twitter has that I think is the best thing for students is your tweet or your conversation that you send out can be no more than 140 characters. It caused me to be a better writer because I had to be concise. I had to get my point across. Now, you need to do some shorthand sometimes by... instead of typing out the word to use the number 2, or instead of the word for, F-O-U-R, F-O-R, you just put the number 4 in there because you're limited. You get creative on those kind of things. So with Twitter, I'll show you a couple slides in a few minutes of what you can do with it, and then how you can have kind of your own group that's on there. So I've got some links, and again, if you guys, I license all of my thing under something called Creative Commons, which you probably don't know about. It's a way that when I make a presentation or I speak somewhere, I make the presentation free. It's licensed under Creative Commons, which means you can use it, you can save it, you can change it, you can modify it. Creative Commons is what it's called.
COMMONS?
ONS. And if you're looking for things that are not copyrighted, like photos or images, Creative Commons has those. If you're looking for audio or music to use for something in a presentation or a speech that you have to do, Creative Commons has that. And all of the people that do it have just said, hey, I created this. Just give me credit for it. You can use it any way that you want to. So that's the way my licensing is done. So if you have some friends that are either in school or, teachers, you're welcome to pass this whole thing on to it. So I'm going to show you very quickly the fake book piece. If you've, Katrina, you've seen Facebook, so you know what it looks like. Annabelle, have you looked at a Facebook page? You kind of know what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, then we're okay. Then I'm going to go, this is done by a company called Class Tools. I'm jumping ahead. And what you do is you make a Facebook page, and it could be on a historical person. And the way teachers use this is they assign your class of 20 and say, okay, you've got Thomas Edison, you have Walt Disney, you have Greta Garbo, a movie star, whatever it happens to be. And then the kids have to do the research, and then they post information about that or historical facts. Now, where the fun comes in with Facebook is the idea is the other students are reading these, but that you occasionally put some wrong information in there. So the other students are reading it and kind of analyzing this data and saying, well, I don't think that's right. That's where the comment comes in, that you type in and say, well, you had Walt Disney's death as December 1st, 1966, and it was actually December 13th, 1966, or whatever you want to put in there. But where I found the fun to come in here is when the teachers kind of got creative and said, you know what, let's have some fun with this. And they would say, who's your favorite character, or who's your favorite superhero? And then somebody would say, well, it happens to be Captain America, or it happens to be one of the Avengers, or it had to be Batman, or, okay, you ladies may have to help me, I can't remember, it was Wonder Woman, I think, was one, Catwoman was another. I'm trying to think of some other superheroes.
Storm.
Okay, so you could say, my favorite superhero is, and then what you do is you make a Facebook page on that person. And I never saw kids have so much fun doing a homework assignment, because they have a number of the schools that I work with, and I don't know if you have them there, they have what's called one-to-one, which means every student, the school district gives them a computer, and they're able to take that home and use it, and they have internet access. So it's a very, very different way to do some things. So these slides in here you can see some that are up there of some of the people, and when you click on it, it's got their history, their information, and what I did is I put, this gentleman is the one that actually created a fake book. It's been around for about a year and a half, and it's taken off by leaps and bounds. It started out in schools, but now it's gone into other areas because a lot of kids are having a lot of fun with it and putting all those things out, and Russell has created a new version that's on there. So these slides have all that information on there. Here's an example that was done on George Washington that was assigned. And you can see the little picture, and then what he would do is put a tidbit of each one of those that are on there about that particular individual. So historical facts about maybe when he was born, maybe some information about when he became president, maybe some American Revolution information. You could take the same type of thing in Alaska on the state history of what happened and how all that was developed together. So it's a very different way to do a Facebook-like thing, but with this thing called Fake Book. Here's a couple other things. There's some things on Walt Disney that are on there, and different comments that are made, and then students can make the comments. So I'm going to jump ahead to Twitter. So as I said, it's 140 characters. That's all you can say. What you do is you create an account, and then what you have to tell people to do, and let's say you two decide, and Katrina, I hope this is all right. I'm just going to say you guys decide to do a nonprofit, form your own company, and something about child services that are available that you're consultants for. So you want to get people to follow you. You would have to first create the Twitter account with a name or something that you could either use your name, you could use the name of your company, child services or whatever, and you would say to other people, hey, follow me on Twitter. Now that's the easy part because they just go to Twitter, create an account and say follow Katrina or follow child services. Where the branding piece comes in or the social media piece comes in is the tweet that you do, what you send out. And by that I mean, and there's a lot of crazy things that go on Twitter. I know that. I mean, between, if you want, just follow some movie stars, follow some sports figures, you name it, and there's just a lot of crazy stuff. But in your case, if you're trying to start this company, you want to send tweets out that mean something to people, and it might be a research piece. It might be a service piece. Now, you have to be real careful that you can't really do a hard sell. In other words, there's a special this month for $99.95. Sign up. They won't let you do that unless you actually buy a professional account. But you could share some things, some websites that you found, some services that you have, or maybe in Washington State there's a seminar going on. And you could say, hey, there's a seminar that they're going to be doing on child service placement or foster kids or whatever it happens to be, and you could broadcast that out. So the secret, the success of Twitter is, number one, you creating your account, but number two, of you putting useful information out there. The retweet thing, do you understand what that is, or do you want me to explain that, what that's about?
Explain it. I don't even know.
Let's say, okay, I have this work I'm doing with Disney in an unofficial, and the reason I have to say unofficial capacity, there's not a formal contract that's involved, and they don't want it to be known that Disney has hired you in any way, so you work in an unofficial capacity. But I have this new website called My Disney Class, and I send something out and say, hey, we're doing a podcast on a certain Imagineer, and it will be broadcast on such and such a date. Katrina, you read that and you say, that's cool. I'd like to let all of my 5 followers know, or 5,000, whatever you happen to have. And there's a little button down there that says retweet. So whatever I said, when you hit that retweet button, it sends it to those 5 people. And as you start building that up over a period of time, then it's pretty amazing, because I started out a number of years ago, and I have 5,000 people that follow me, and I think the only reason that they do is because every day in the morning and the afternoon, as I give them content they can use, and they find it useful to be used as an educator in the classroom. So in your case, you need to think, at the beginning it's not that critical, the idea is just to get some followers, and so you say to Annabelle, hey, can you follow me? And then we'll just practice on that. And the two of you, that's the best way to start. You both create an account, you send some things back and forth, you follow some people. Annabelle, give me either sports person, movie star, actress, or a singer. Just give me a name.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay, if you went to Twitter and said search and typed that name, it would come up, show a picture, a description, and there'd be a little button there that says follow. Now you've got to have your account created to do this, and then every time she sends a tweet out, you will see it. And then you say, wow, I didn't know that, and then you say retweet. Katrina then is able to see that because she's following you, or anybody else is following you. So that in 2 minutes is basically how Twitter works and what it is. Twitter is ranked number 2 behind Facebook. It is now at about 800,000. This is an old number that's up on the screen there. It is free. There are no costs involved whatsoever. And the last thing that you may have seen, and I'm going to switch this back. If you have either of you looked at an actual Twitter account, I mean to go to Twitter and look at some things?
She's looking at hers right now.
Yeah.
At who?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, okay. You said hers. I thought maybe she had created an account already. She was so enthusiastic by what I said. She went and created an account.
No, she had one already. She had one already, and so she's just kind of walking through it. As you're talking
okay.
about.
So what's it? Is it appropriate to discuss what is being said there? Sometimes it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. I'm not following anyone, so nothing really comes up on mine.
Okay. But if you have the account, can you see the little follow button where you can click on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can type any person in there. So let's say there was a movie star that you thought was really good. You just type that name in, and most people use their first and last name, or on my other Twitter account, it's H. de Blasi. For my Disney class, it's called My Disney Class. The last thing that is in here that I wanted to mention is there's something called a hashtag. Have you ever heard of that, or do you know what that is?
Yep.
It's a way of grouping your information. So, for example, if you put, and a hashtag means the pound sign, if you put pound sign and, okay, I'm going to ask Katrina, somebody, either a movie star, a singer, an actor you're interested in.
Let's do Dwayne Johnson.
Okay. There probably is a hashtag for Dwayne Johnson, or maybe it's just Dwayne. And what it means is when you want to talk just specifically about Dwayne, you go hashtag Dwayne, and then you put whatever it is in there, and you say tweet. And they'll all be grouped together, and you can search for hashtag Dwayne. You can actually go into Twitter and look for the hashtags. An example would be Winter Olympics that'll be coming up. And a hashtag is going to be probably Winter Olympics 16. So that means every comment that's made about that with that hashtag will be grouped together. So that's the way you can keep the conversation going in that particular piece. So and the last part of this is what's called a direct message. Direct message means you send it to Annabelle, and she is the only one that sees that. Or Annabelle sends it to you, you put a D there, and you say, let's do lunch at Gino's. She is the only one that sees that. If she doesn't do the D, that means all of the followers see it. And the only reason I'm finishing with this and mentioning it is we have people in Congress who don't understand direct messages, and they send very inappropriate messages thinking that it's going to one person and it goes to the whole world. And I mean, there was one you may have remembered a while back. They are no longer in Congress because they weren't smart enough to send a direct message. So that's a real quick piece on Twitter and Facebook. So I'm going to, 1 second.
I have a question.
You bet. Go ahead.
What would be another useful way to use Facebook?
Probably in your situation, there's probably not a lot. There were going to be some teachers in the other group, so that's why I put that together.
Okay.
Do you work with? I don't know what you do in child services, but do you work with kids in foster homes?
Yes.
Do they have computer access or internet access? Do you know?
Yeah, for the most part. I would say yes at some point, either at school or at home, or both.
So how are you directly involved? Here, where I'm going with this is, if you had access to that, if you're looking, because a lot of times, and I just know because some friends have been foster parents, and they've said how difficult it is at times because of other emotional things or whatever reasons. Sometimes it's hard to get to the kids, to live in the home, to get them to feel comfortable. This would be a way that they could have an awful lot of fun and build some rapport and some relationships with the foster parents by saying, and you would show the parents. I don't know if you directly work with the kids. I don't know what that procedure is, but you could basically say to the parents, hey, I heard about this thing. Have you ever thought of trying to build your relationship with your foster kids that are there, with the 2 or 3, and say, here's a way that you could do it, and it would also help them in school, because then hopefully what would happen is they would create a thing on their superhero or whatever it happens to be. Then the student goes to school and could say to the teacher, hey, I've got a project, can I show you? And a lot of times doing those kind of things, it really starts to put a relationship back together where they're doing something very, very different, very creative in doing some things like that. So that's the only application I could probably really think for you.
Do you think that foster kids could use this, and like the foster parents could use it to create one about themselves, so they can each kind of read about each other and comment back and forth?
Yeah. I mean, they could do a Facebook thing, but the problem with Facebook, with the fake book, it's pretty private. In other words, unless you know where Facebook is, you're really not going to get to it. Where with Facebook, all I got to do is type Bob Johnson, and boom, up comes his page. And especially in foster families, you don't want all that information out there. At least I wouldn't think you would. So with Facebook, you can create that, and it goes into category there that's somewhat private. So it's another way to work with the parents, to work with the community, to work with the kids. I think you could have a lot of fun with it and doing that.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Annabelle, I don't know, in your situation, is there anything that you could think of? I mean, you could have a lot of fun with it, but in your application and in what you do?
She's a stay-at-homer. She's my nanny.
Yeah.
Well, you could. And how old are your kids?
just turned 6 and about to turn 5.
Well, I got a 6-year-old grandson who doesn't do anything with Facebook, but I am absolutely amazed of what that kid does with Minecraft. I mean, he builds worlds, just you name it. Annabelle's shaking her head. I'm just blown away on what those kids can do and what they know. He can search, when he was 4, he could search in YouTube. He loves Darth Vader. He could show me any video on Darth Vader and showed me some, well, it's the way he first time heard a bad word. Mom was not happy. So I explained, I had a conversation with my daughter. I said, listen, it's out there and they're going to do it. You just need to figure out a way you're going to deal with that and say, and it was not a good thing, but it was a good thing the way that it happened. So both of the kids are very careful now in doing that kind of thing. So anyways, let's jump ahead into the next part, and I'm going to move on to blogging. So tell me, and I'll pull a few slides up, tell me what you know about blogging.
I know blogging is kind of like, I know you can make money off of it. I know you can get into Disneyland.
You're right. You can make a lot. If you're really good, you can make a lot of money off of it. But I'll tell you about my journey in blogging, and it takes a special talent. So have you read any? I'll start, Katrina. I'll start with you, and then go to Annabelle. Have you read any blogs, Katrina?
I'm not a real big blog reader, but would you consider like what are those ones where they do the short clips of the videos?
Vine.
Would you consider like Vine a type of blog?
Not really. You know what Vine is, 6 seconds, but that is another way of doing social media. And when Darcy and I put this together, I said there's so many things. Maybe we'll do 2 or 3 of these. So we're concentrating kind of starting with Twitter and a touch of Facebook, blogs and wikis. We may do some of that later. So it is a way of communicating, of socially communicating and getting a message. What I really like about Vine, 6 seconds. How do you get a message across in 6 seconds? And I do a lot of things with creativity and critical thinking with school districts and with teachers, and how to do that in their classroom. Vine is one of the best ways they can do that, because they've got to really think that thing through. And what we do is, we use the little 3x5 cards, and on the 3x5 card, they draw a little stick figure, and they make out like each second they're going to do to get the message across and figure out how to do that. So Vine is a good way to do that. It's not the blogging piece. Well, let me go to Annabelle. Have you read any blogs, Annabelle?
I have. I actually had a blog for a while in high school. I blogged back and forth with other people as well. I had a ton of followers, so it was just people were reading mine and I was reading theirs. So.
Well, you're going to be the expert here then. We'll call on you.
All right.
It's when you do the blog and you can create it. I'm going to show you the steps and you'll be able to get the PowerPoint to download it. You can have a blog in 5 minutes. You can create it. You get to decide who reads it, who comments on it. So you can make it that people only read it and don't comment. And probably, Annabelle, I'm curious, was it something that your teacher did or you did on your own?
It wasn't necessarily for a class, but she challenged us to, get our thoughts out there in a way of telling a story. So we all just kind of started our own blogs and did our own thing.
Well, I hope you thanked her because that's an excellent way to do that because when I was in high school, I was terrible. I was a jock. I played football. They helped me a lot with my grades, not inappropriately, but there were a lot of help sessions after school, evening, to get me to understand things. I didn't like school, but I had one teacher that challenged me in a lot of different ways, and it helped me later in life. And I think this is the same case here where a teacher comes along and says, you can do this, creative writing, people will read it. What I found as I started blogging is I got a lot of personal satisfaction of people commenting and say, wow, I never thought about that. And I really liked the comment piece. And there were some times they weren't too kind either. I don't know about you, but you are off your rocker. What in the world? That is the craziest thing. And sometimes you'd meet them in person because I'd be at a conference or I'd work at a school district or whatever, and somewhat confrontational at sometimes. But it really helped me grow as a writer and learning how to do it. So were you doing reflections on, say, what your life was like at that time, or were there certain topics, or what exactly were you blogging about?
Mine mainly was current issues, current events and what's going on in the country and stuff like that.
Your opinion on them, or giving a reaction to, or what?
Yeah, kind of my opinion and how I felt about what had happened or what was going on.
And did your teacher read those, or how did that work?
She did. We had a spotlight one of the week, and whoever did the best one, she'd read it to the class.
How did that? Did she read any of yours?
She did read one of mine. I don't remember what
How
it
did
was
that make
on,
you feel? What's that?
I kind of felt embarrassed, but it was my writing. I love writing, so I don't like other people reading my writing in front of me, but I thought it was kind of cool.
Well, it's the thing, on the other side of that screen is this group and these people, and I don't have to really interact. I can through my comments and things, but when you're there in class, how are the other kids going to do? Oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm the teacher's pet and, all that kind of stuff. But no, the first time that I did a blog, how long ago was this for you?
3 years ago.
Okay. I started mine about 10 years ago because I was getting interested in something, and I did my first post. I wrote a piece about something that I really like to do. I just did it because I wanted to do it. I was working in Colorado at the time, and I posted it, and then 2 days went by, nothing happened, and I thought, well, nobody's going to know. And then I get this comment. And the comment in there says, hi, my name is Joanne. You're really cute. Here's my phone number, and if you'd like to hook up, call me at this number. I went, oh my God, that is not my intention. And I thought, is that what blogging's all about? Because I didn't expect that in the least. So you have to monitors. Something I don't know if you got any of those kind of things, but to me it was very embarrassing, especially when my wife read it and she said, "Who is this person?" So that was a lot of fun. So let me give me about 10, 15 seconds. I've got to switch and I've got to pull up. And what I want to do is go through blogging so that I'm going to take about 15, 20 minutes and go through the slides, talk about some different things. But I want to, and I've got to still, because of the recording, this, still keep in mind that Darcia's group will be watching this and share some things because they're going to have some librarians and they're going to have some educators that are in there. But I want to kind of gear it towards both of you with the idea of you might want to do a blog. And it doesn't matter to me when we kind of role play a little bit here if you want to do this as business related or if you just want to do it as a personal blog, because I have both. So let me do a couple switches here. And
can I ask a question while you're doing this?
You bet. Go ahead.
So you do most of these things for, it seems like you do it for both business and for personal. How much time
Yes.
do you like, I mean, do you have like a certain routine so you don't spend your whole day on them? Or like do you get up in the morning and write all your stuff and then you're done with social media and, you know, everything for the day?
Yeah, I have. I retired 6 years ago, but I'm busier now than I was then. I'm traveling, although I'm doing a lot more by video conference. But my routine basically is I get up early in the morning, I go work out, I run, I have a light breakfast, and then I come back, and at 7:30 every morning, I post to Twitter. I do 5 to 8 tweets. I go over to My Disney Class. I post 5 to 8 there, educational things. And then I usually work on the My Disney Class website for about an hour. And then I write for 2 Disney blogs. And I have kind of a routine because when there's a deadline that you have to have those. One is weekly, one is monthly. So I try to, keep on schedule and do that. The topics are pretty much my own. Like the one I'm working on now is, yes, Disney World is expensive to go to, but there's a lot of free things you can do. So the article is going to be words, short on words, but a lot of photographs. So I'm taking people around Disney World, and the part I'm working on right now is a place called the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and it's called Kidani Village. And there's about 15 free things you can do. So I'm writing about that. So I'll spend an hour or so working on that. Then I have some podcasts we do. So in answer to your question, yes, I have a routine that I go through. And if I get off of that because of a video conference or something, then sometimes I end up in the evening. I try to still get that done that same day to get it done. And I found by having that discipline of doing that, you with a full-time job, Annabelle might have a little bit more time. I don't know what your time schedules are, but just taking that discipline and say, I'm going to do an hour to do it. The hardest thing that I found at the beginning was I didn't know what to write about. It took me 3 years before I got noticed enough. And ironically, it was Twitter that did it, because I would put things on Twitter that said, hey, read my new blog post about Walt Disney being brought back to life in a time machine with a catchy title. And I did a lot of those kind of things. So that's what kind of got things started. And about a year ago, a guy that does the Disney blog called WDW Fan Zone said, hey, would you be interested in writing for us? Da-da-da-da. And then another one came along. And some pay nothing. But that's you want those because you want to get your stories out there, and you want to figure out kind of a little niche, because if you're all over the place, people are just not going to be sure why they should tune in. So if your passion happens to be crafts or fashion or whatever it is, that you kind of follow along in those lines and then spend that time to be able to do that. And the people that make a lot of money are people that do blogs for like the New York Times and some of those. So if your goal is to make a lot of money, it's a tough road to do because I mean there's literally millions of bloggers. All you have to do is type, say blog fashion or blog Pinterest or blog Disney or something like that, and you'll just find literally hundreds of those things that are out there. So yeah, the discipline helps. I rambled a little bit there, but I wanted to try to answer that for you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let me get this one up. Stand by here. It's going to take me. Okay, about 10 seconds here and we'll get it loaded. And what I'm going to do is show you a number of things that you can do. And then whenever you want to, you can get the slides. There's about 40 slides in this pack. Okay, you should see the one, the slide up. Let's see. Are you seeing the slides or not?
Yeah, we can see. Well, we can see blogging. What, why, how.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go through and just talk about some points in here, and what I usually do if I'm doing this with a group of teachers, what I want to do is give them what our objectives are. So what I want to do is briefly show you how to find some blogs you're interested in, then how to create an actual account, modify it, and then let other people know about that. So that's kind of the steps that we're going to go through. So I'm not going to go through what the blog is. I think it sounds like you guys know that's on there. I have on here a little video, so if you wanted to share with some people, and when you get this PowerPoint, and again, I will send it to Chris, and I will also send it to Darcia, and you can contact, let's see, maybe before we finish today, you guys could give me your emails, and then I could send the links to you. If you're not comfortable with that, I'll give you my email address, and you could email me, and then I'll send it. But there's a video in here about what blogging is, so let me jump ahead and Annabelle, I think this applies to you if we're talking about it in the classroom, but it's usually some type of collaborative writing, and some teachers do it as a alternative assignment. Some actually have it as a required piece, and a lot of school districts have their own blogging platform there at the school district. In other words, so it's private, so mom and dad can do it, and that's just a personal thing within schools I do, where I think both of you, if you did it, it would be out more in the public, but you can control that also. One of the things that I am amazed at when the students the first time get a comment or response back from somebody, and a lot of times that you partner with somebody. Annabelle, you said, I didn't catch what it was. You were partnering with somebody, or somebody else was doing it with you, or how did that work?
It wasn't really an assigned thing. We all just decided to do our own, but it was on a ton of different stuff, like personal opinions and whatnot. So it was like a whole class doing it. It wasn't like an assignment, though.
So who was actually reading them?
We were all reading each other's, and just anybody who stuff on ours would read them.
Okay, and were you allowed to make comments?
Yeah.
I'm curious because a lot of teachers don't do this. Did they give you the guidelines for when you made comments, or did they just turn you loose and say, just go for it?
Yeah, she didn't really have any say in it, so she just kind of let us do whatever.
Well, what I meant by that is when you do it in a classroom situation, you need to give those guidelines, whatever those things are. There'll be, no profanity, no tearing down of another student's work. You can comment and reflect on it, and you can criticize, but don't do it in a bullying way, those kind of things. But when you go out to public, you got to wear a hard shell, because sometimes people are not going to agree with what you have. But the main thing that what we're talking about is this is going to be a source of information. And so, Katrina, if you're going to do this, have you thought much about doing the blog of what you would write about if you did it?
No, I think I'm looking at this from more of like a professional standpoint, and I feel overwhelmed by doing a lot of stuff on the internet, so I can see me using like different little things, but I don't think I would take the time for the most part to write out like blogs about things, because I know they tend to be longer, they're more like stories or at least that's my perception of them.
Yes and no. That's partially true, but one of the things with what I had to do is when I started writing for Stuart for Disney, and he has a limit of 1,000 words. I did it, and what I found out was people would read halfway through and they wouldn't continue. Now, they never told me that, but I could tell by the number of visits to the page and how long they were there. So I have switched during the second year now to more photos and one or two liners to tell my story. And I found that the reader response and staying on the page is much longer. So don't feel that you've got to write the 1,000 words, or sometimes I have another one I only get 500 words putting on there. And some of the blogs that pay, they pay by the word sometimes, or sometimes they pay by the page. So don't feel you got to do 4 pages. You can do 1 page on it to get started. So don't let that discourage you on doing it there. One of the things a lot of people really like, I'm going to jump ahead here, is that you get immediate feedback, assuming that people are reading a lot of those things together. If you're doing together, so if you and Annabelle did it together, you've got some teamwork that's going on. And what I have up on the screen there is things that you could do of how you can link these things together in the blog. You could have that Facebook page. You could have a website. By the way, if you're going to create a website, and if Darcy and I do another one, I will talk about something called Wix that is free, and another one called Weebly. Both of those are free places that you can make websites. I use Wix because it's so simple to do, and they've got design templates, and you can have fun, family, professional things, a business piece, an educational piece. If you're interested in a hobby. What's that?
Can you tell me how to spell those?
Oh, Wix, W-I-X.
Okay.
Just type Wix website, and the second one is Weebly. It's a part of Google. Weebly, W-E-E-B-L-Y, and just type that in Google, and it'll come up. And you can look at the two. And what I do when I'm trying that is I just go ahead and I make it a one-page thing, and I don't read their instructions intentionally. I want to see how easy it is to do it. So I just go ahead and try it. But if you have a newsletter you're going to send out to people, you could do that. You could tell people about Twitter that's on there. If you're doing Vine videos, you could tell people where those are, or YouTube videos. Or you could say, hey, Annabelle, I'd like your reflection on what it's like to be a nanny. Write a page. Other people have been thinking about that. So would Annabelle be willing to write that? You don't have to answer it. It's okay. It's okay. So let me jump ahead. So tell me some of, I got a pretty good feel of the things that you two are interested in. This is an article that's in there in the PowerPoint, and it's ways to find blogs that you might be interested in, 10 different ways. I'm going to show you a couple things that you can do, and if you want to jot these down, or I can send you the link to the PowerPoint to actually get that. Either of you know about Alltop? Mark it down. It's alltop.com. It is probably the best search site for finding blog and social media things. So when you go in there, and I'm going to go back, and Annabelle, I'm sorry, I didn't. Who was was it a singer or a movie star that you were interested in?
Movie star.
And what was the name again?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Holy cow.
I'm writing it down so I don't forget it. So you would go to Alltop, and you could put in her name, or you also, if you didn't want to use the reason for the directory is things are all organized. You could just go in Google and say blog Jennifer Lawrence. I don't know if she has her own blog or not, but in Alltop it would find it if there is one. And sometimes in Google it doesn't. That's not enough information to know on that. So you could type any particular person. So Alltop is a great directory to use. This is what it looks like. They're categorized, and you'd find things like actors and actresses. You'd find different topics that are listed on this. Happened to be one in music. And then the music is categorized down to smaller ones. So if you had something in sports and you were interested in women's soccer, for example, you could find information on there. So on Alltop, you could say women's sports, soccer, and if there was a particular person you wanted to know about, to read about, or maybe it's the upcoming Olympics, that would be Summer Olympics that are coming up, the trials and things are going on for right now. The second one is Technorati. This is probably more towards technology things. So if you wanted some techie topics, so for example, excuse me, I started out here, I've done podcasts for a while, but when I first started, I had no clue of what equipment to use. So I went to Technorati and I typed blog, podcast, equipment. And usually if you can get it in 3 or 4 words, it'll get pretty specific, and it gave me recommendations on equipment. So Technorati is the technology piece that's on there, and you can see that's what their webpage looks like. And again, these are links, you can go directly to it. And then the third one, there's 10 more in the article, I'm just putting 3 up here. The third one to search for blogs is Blog Catalog. And these are kind of very, very specialized type of things. So if you did something with design of flowers, or you had a certain type of cooking that was very specific, you could find those and you could search in there for that. So that's what that looks like. So if you don't want to use the catalogs, I want to show you a couple things in Google to search with. And so what I did is, my wife said, I would like to know something about the Disney food at the restaurants and how those chefs prepare those. But when I just typed in Disney, I got cajillion. I mean, I don't know what the number was. It was ridiculously high because it searched for everything Disney. Then I said Disney food, and then I said Disney food blog. Well, you can see that the results were still 37 million. And the good results in most cases were at the beginning. And then I thought, well, I wonder what would happen if I reversed the order of those, saying blog first and then Disney food. Actually it went up a little bit. But then I said, okay, let's get a little more specific. Let's talk about meals. Now, and I said blog information, basically is what I want there, Disney food and dinner. You can see it, but it's still at 5 million. But notice what happened when I really got specific. I was looking for blog articles that were about Disney food and dinner at a specific restaurant. So hopefully you can see how I started drilling down on each one of those. So back to your Jennifer Lawrence, maybe there's a particular song, movie or something on there. you could say blog Jennifer Lawrence and then a name of a movie or a song on there to find that specific information. So either one of those will help you. And you can see this is the search results that I got up there when I did that. And they were actually blogs, one called the Disney Food Blog, and it talked about eating at those places. And then there were some things about chefs. And my wife likes a lot of things doing with gourmet cooking, so she was interested in how the chefs at Disney did that. One thing that you'll need to know is when you go to those sites, if you want to continue reading, and some do them daily, some do weekly, some do monthly. There's a thing called the RSS feed, and that's that little symbol that's in the upper right-hand corner there. And when you click on that, it says, I will send to your email address every time we do a post. So that way you don't have to keep going back to the blog to look for it. So when you find that particular blog, you say, well, that looks interesting. And you can always unsubscribe. You just say, I don't want to get this anymore, unsubscribe. So RSS is that funny looking symbol that's up there that looks like waves that are going out on it. So in reading the blog, they all pretty much follow, and if you both looked at a couple, usually on the left side is the post, and the most recent is at the top. Then over to the right, you will find other topics. You will also find the categories, because some people put different categories. And I'm going to go back to the Jennifer Lawrence thing. She might have things of movies, music, family, and there's different things about that. So, Katrina, give me a topic you'd be interested in outside of work.
Oh,
like some hobbies or things you do.
Maybe like weightlifting.
I'm impressed. So you could, that would be interesting. In fact, when you get a chance, type weightlifting blog or blog weightlifting, and if there's a certain magazine that you read or something, there may be articles and things that they have in there. So over to the right, there are other blog posts that they've done that you can click on, and you can't see it on this page. Let's see if I see the next one. I was looking for the RSS feed. Sometimes they're not easy to see. Sometimes they're at the bottom of the page. But you can see the categories going across the top of the screen. For example, here's an example of one of the Disney ones that I put on there. There's some topics across the top, individual pages and categories that are on there, and then the actual blog post. Now, this has changed in the last year. The blog post used to have the whole blog post, and you'd have to scroll down forever. And what they do now is snapshots. So you'll see a photo, an image, the title, and maybe one or two sentences so you can click on. Now, on this one, I did it intentionally because can you see in the right-hand side the little RSS feed, the little thing with the waves going out? When you click on that, it would allow you to subscribe. The reason the other icons are there, that if you wanted to follow them on Twitter, you'd click Twitter. If you wanted to be a friend on Facebook and read that and subscribe to it, you can do that. So when you go on the blogs, you can look for that. What was that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, like, if you create your own website for a business or a nonprofit or whatever, can you make that little link thing to attach all of, like, the Facebook for the page, the Twitter for the page? Okay.
That's why I like Wix. Wix has all that done for you. And it has the little icons, and you just say social media, and you click on this button, and you say paste, and it puts it on there. Now, you need to, in each one of those little buttons, put your Twitter handle or your Facebook page, and then when people click on that, you automatically get it. I mean, it takes all of a minute on each one of those, and if you don't have, let's say you have Instagram, let's say you're using Pinterest, but you say, well, I'm not going to do this particular one that's over here. You just delete that icon. And it's very, very easy to do. Now, Weebly, I don't know because I've used that in a class once, but it's designed probably more for schools. So I would either do GoDaddy I used to use, but they started charging a lot more. And what I liked about Wix, it was free, and I could try it. I could do a couple pages. So in my case, I needed to get my domain, mydisneyclass.com. I got that, and then I went over to Wix and started creating it. So in answer to your question, yes, you can create all those things and put those on there without too much trouble. So these are just some ways to get a hold of people, to contact and so on, and navigating. So we've already talked about this, but usually at this point what I do, because I want to go on to a couple other things to make sure we cover the wikis, is you would have a discussion and you would ask some of the questions. So I'm just going to kind of brainstorm with you, Katrina, if it's okay. So, Katrina, if you want to do a blog, what's something, you told me the weightlifting, but something else. What's something you're really passionate about? I mean, this could be anything. Something that just really gets your juices going and say, wow, that boy, when somebody talks to me about that, I'll talk to them for 2 hours.
Rob? Well, it'd probably have to do something with work, nonprofit work with kids.
No, you can't do work.
Okay, well...
I'm kidding. You can. What I'm trying to do is to get you to have a conversation with Annabelle or somebody else to find out what I'm passionate about and what I might first start writing a blog about. So whichever you'd like to pick, just tell me something. You said about work, like what at work?
What do you think I should?
You could talk to me for hours.
My sister says, like my activism for civil rights would probably be something I could talk about for hours.
Oh, okay. All right. Would you be uncomfortable? Okay, you write your first blog and you kind of lay it out there and you said, you know, this is my passion. This is what I'm excited about. Things in the next, you've decided I wouldn't suggest you do it weekly. I'd suggest you do it maybe monthly or periodically. But when people subscribe, they'll get information. And you say, here's what I'm going to do every week. I'm going to talk about some things about this, and this. And then the second time, you decide to talk about Ferguson. Would you be comfortable in putting your opinion out there about that? You know, were there some...
My issue with that is, although like I would feel comfortable having a conversation with somebody, my only thought about that is because I do, you know, work for the state. I feel like if I was to put something extremely controversial, someone could hold that against me in my workplace and feel like I was biased in some way. And
okay,
so that would be more my issue than anything.
You just nailed something that there's a lot of people who do blogs that they don't even think about. And you're exactly right, because all of a sudden they don't have a job. So you need to be able to separate the work from, you know, the passion for weightlifting or whatever. And no matter what you do, and if Annabelle does it also, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're a mom, a nanny, whatever your job is, you need to be aware of those things, because in this day and age, anybody can find out anything about you, even if you think it's private. So what you need to ask yourself is, I mean, you can write the piece, but you need to say, what if somebody at work read this? Now, if you're just more or less giving reflections of what happened, that's one thing. But when you really start taking a stand and condemning the police, I'm using this as an example, condemning the police department for an injustice that happened because of, would you get into trouble at work, or could you if you did that?
Are you asking me? Because I think that I think that there's always a possibility, you know, if somebody wants to really raise ruckus about something, there's always consequences. There's some sort of consequence.
Yeah, and you need to ask those questions of yourself. When I click, because when you click that post, it's there. And even if you delete it 2 days later, it's still there. There's places on the internet you can capture that kind of stuff. So think about, that's why I said you're probably better off doing some things you're passionate about, the weightlifting things. You know, it's funny because I follow some people on Twitter, and I don't know why they do it, but they give me their mile times every day, and I really don't care. But they also give me really good content, about other things they do. So I have to put up with how long it took them to run a marathon. I'm training for a marathon, and they make me sick how well and how fast that they're going. So when I read that, I'm kind of jealous that they can do the mile in such and such a time, and I'm, way out there. So think about those things before you post those kind of things. But there's a lot of different things you can do, and, start out with something that you might have a lot of fun with. So let me get to the next piece that I have on the screen over to the right there, and it has to do with your content. And it's like, so what am I going to put on this? What is the content going to be about? And you want to think about the people reading your blog, because obviously you want more people to come back. And you'll start small. You tell Annabelle first, and she tells a friend, and she, hey, you got to read what she's reading about this. And I'm going to use the weightlifting example, but it might be like your personal journey. And I'll team tag that with, I don't know the name of the show. I don't watch it. My wife does. The weight loss show of where they go on this journey and they do all this exercising. My gosh, and they lose like 100 pounds. Maybe there's a journey like that. And other people would be interested in that, saying, well, I wanted to do a little bit of weightlifting, but there's this gal in Alaska in Craig. Her name is Katrina, and I read this thing. It's amazing what she did and how she learned to do this, the struggle she had. So it's kind of a personal thing, that the content is personal and it gives me some things. So come back to this slide when you're looking for that. And one of the things that I think is really important, which is number 6 on there, is a call to action. In other words, what are you going to do about this? You've said you wanted to get on some kind of a weight training program, but what are you going to do? How are you? And that invites the comments to come back, where people will say, hey, thanks for the info. I'm going to start in this program. I'm going to use the book that you mentioned, whatever those kind of things happen to be on there. So I want to jump now. Question?
Yeah, it was always include a call of what?
A call to action.
A call to action. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that was just like, I'm going to challenge you. So in my blog, at the end, there may be something that says, if you want more information, go here and let me know 3 things you found out. So I've told you where you can go to get some information, but I'm asking you as a call to action to reply back to me. That type of thing. Okay?
And that just involves your bloggers more so that they want to read and come back
exactly.
to your blog?
And other people say, you know what, she was interested in what I had to say. And another part of that is that you comment back to each person that does that, so that they feel personal connection that's going on there with it. So I'm going to jump to Blogger, and I want to show you, let me get to here. This is free. It is available from Google. When you create it, it takes all of 5 minutes to create it. I'll take you through the steps here in a minute. Very easy to learn. And what I really like about it is you get to control who reads it and who comments. If you don't want anybody commenting, you can click a little button saying no comments. Or you can say you can comment, but I approve it. In other words, somebody puts some profanity in there, you could say don't post this. And that's usually what the educators do. So I'll take you step by step through that, and they keep updating it. So I'm going to take, you can put, this is what you can do on the blog, and a lot of times people don't take advantage of this. The text or the story you're familiar with. What you're probably not familiar with is how you can take and put images in there. You can put audio, and you can put video. So you can put your Vine videos in here if you wanted to. So what you do is you go to blogger.com, and again, if you'll send, my email is howie@frontier.net. I'll give that to you again at the end. Send me an email and say, hey, I'd like the PowerPoint, and I'll send you to the link of where you can get it. So you go to blogger.com, and then if you have a Google account, just about everybody does, you just sign in with your Google account. And what it will do then is it will come up and say, what is going to be the display name. In other words, your name can be Katrina or Annabelle, but you could have a display name up there by, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to, Katrina, tie this into weightlifting. Who's a famous? Okay. I'm going to use Hercules. Maybe your blogger name is Hercules, or is there a famous woman that's well known in weightlifting or weight training?
I'm sure there is, but I don't really follow women.
Well, you could put that kind of thing up there if you want. Most people just put their name up there, so they put the name that you'll sign in with, and then you say, I want a new blog. Now, all you have to do here, what I do my first ones is I just make it a test, because I just want to kind of play with it, because you can always delete it. So you'd put up there my weight training program, or Jennifer Lawrence star, or whatever it happens to be, whatever your interests are. And then where the address is, that's going to be the actual web address. So, and it will be something, so Hercules.blogspot.com. So whatever name you put in there, and it will tell you, because see down below, I don't know if you can read that, it says this blog address is available. It checks to see if it's available. So if you pick up something real common like Hercules, it'll probably say that's not available. So that will be your web address, and you want to keep that short, because the last thing you want to do is have people to type 47 or 48 characters on there to do that. So it'll say that's available, and you create the blog. Blogger has templates. So if you're doing sports, there's some for sports. If it's hobbies, if it's a business, all those are templates. Now, if you don't want a template, you can make a blank one. The reason I suggest to start with a template is that you put that piece together in that it has everything in there on that screen for you to do. So you don't have to figure out, okay, the context is going to go here, the comments are going to go here. That's all done for you. It makes it very, very easy. That's why I say you can do it in 5 minutes. So you can scroll down, you pick one of those, you say create, and then what you want to do is click on this thing. It says a new post. And at this point, you can actually stop. But what I suggest you do is type in one, and I'll show you what it looks like. You give it a title, and you can just say my first post. So Annabelle, I'm going to have you help me with this as we go through. So I put the title in there. Annabelle, what hobbies are you really like to do or passionate about?
Sleep. Oh, that's, I don't know. I have no clue.
She said sleep.
I like to sleep.
Did she say sleep or sleet?
Sleep, S-L-E-E-P.
That's what I thought she said.
That's why she's a nanny.
How about snow sleds, snowmobiles, or something like that? You're in Alaska. Nothing like that? You don't do any outdoor things, skiing or anything, cross country?
I've snowboarded. I enjoy snowboarding.
So how far away are you from going snowboarding?
I don't know. How far?
You look for big hills or what?
It doesn't really snow on the island.
There's no snow here, so.
Well, okay, it's January. Is there snow in January?
I think it snowed like once or twice last year.
Only like
Oh, I don't even know. I apologize. I don't know. I just found out, 2 hours ago that was with Craig, Alaska. Where are you in relation to the state?
We're a rainforest. We're by Canada, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're in southeast Alaska.
Well, Annabelle, this may be a little tough, but we'll try to make it work with the snowboarding. The post title: Why I Can't Snowboard in Craig, Alaska,
Yeah.
or something like that. So you put that title in there, and then we go to the next page, and you compose. And what you get is just a box. There is no limit to what you type in here. And where people make their mistakes first on the blogs is they ramble. And if you've done any kind of writing, the best thing you can do is an outline before you even do this. And you can stop at any point and save this and come back tomorrow. So at the very beginning, you can just say save and then come back tomorrow, come back in a week. So you have your title of why you can't, and maybe your points are a little bit about Craig, maybe a little bit about why you love snowboarding, and then what you have to do because you can't snowboard here. So, for example, if you decided to take a trip to snowboard in Alaska, where would you go?
Where would I go?
I don't know. I have no idea. Up north somewhere. Up north.
Up north.
Okay. I'm going up north. Whatever. I think you get my idea in it. What's that?
She said she'd go to Oregon to snowboard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So another post. My trip to Oregon. My first snowboarding in Oregon, or whatever it is. Things that interest you, but telling a story, but again, somehow involving the people. The call to action might be, have you ever... I have no idea. I skied in Colorado a lot, so I know those resorts, but I have no clue what's in Oregon. But let's say it's called Oregon Snow Resort or something. The call to action might be, have you ever snowboarded at other resorts or snow destinations in Oregon? If so, tell us where. So that's an invitation to them to comment on your blog post, and in addition to other places they've been. Doing that, then people say, hey, yeah, I went to here in Oregon, or have you ever thought of going up to such and such in Washington? Or I went to Utah and I did some snowboarding there. I took lessons, or I learned how to do it there. So those are the kind of things that you can put in there. And then some of the things, this is some of the settings I was talking about that you can do. See how that says on there, reader comments. I've marked allow, but you can say don't allow. I think you take away a lot of the power there when you don't let people comment. You also can put a piece in there that says, it's down a little further, I didn't put it on the screen, but you can say allow, but I have to approve. And again, if somebody used something inappropriate or language is inappropriate, you could allow it not to be posted. So those are a whole bunch of little settings that you can do on there. There's additional things. So you've got Katrina so excited about snowboarding, she says, I want to go. I want to write about this. So you could say, well, I'm going to make you an author. So there's this under settings, I'm pointing down to that where it says add authors. So you could also be an author. Or in my case, the two blogs that I write for, I'm a guest author. So they give me permission to do that. So that's where you can add that under the settings. Then there's quite a few more things that you can put in there as far as permissions, where you can put things you can say, things you can do, how to put graphics into it. If you don't like the template you started with, you can go back and you can re-customize it. So, and then what a lot of people do in the first one after they've done it and they kind of have an understanding how it works, they delete it. And then they recreate it and start over because they say, well, I'd like to do this, this, and this because they don't want to have the things that are out there. And you go under templates to do that. Blogger has, I'm going to wrap up with this and then move over to the wikis. Blogger has a really good guide of step-by-step. Now, what I put in this little PowerPoint is a step-by-step to get you started. And once you do it, it's pretty intuitive that you click on different things to be able to do that. It's an example of what a school did for a German class and where they put things in there. Now, I do want to show you one thing that's way over to the right, if you can see that. On Blogger, there will be some ads. I have never found anything inappropriate. They are they're not intrusive. If you've been on Google, you know that every once in a while it will pop up and you go, man, how did they know I was looking for a new tablet or a new phone? Well, they keep track of your search information, and that's the kind of things that'll pop up. Or you're going to do a trip to Florida, and things will pop up in there. So I will exit out of this, and what I want to do is give you a couple minutes to stretch. We've got, let me look here, we have about 20 more minutes, and then we'll wrap up. So if you want to take a stretch break, hit the restroom, wait a couple minutes while I'm setting that up, and then we'll start this back up, and then for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hello, this is Chris with the Al Video Conferencing Support. I noticed that the conference is probably going to run a little bit longer, so it's scheduled to end at 4, but I can extend it. I'll probably have another 30 minutes to it to account for.
Well, the reason I did it is because we were so late. We were so late in starting.
Yeah, so.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go till quarter after.
Okay, I'll put another 5 minutes on top of that just to be sure. I am going to have to be leaving the office at 4 o'clock, so beyond 4
Fine.
I'll be unavailable to extend it any further if there are any more questions or anything.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of guiding this along. It's worked out fine. I think we're answering and addressing a lot of the questions that that Darcia had, and giving them a lot of good examples and things with the conversation. So I hope that's been all right.
Very good. I'm going to go ahead and add that time then.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
From a big Hannah.
I've logged into Facebook on my computer a really long time, so it's having me confirm people's identities. This is terrible. Like, I don't know my own friends.
You're in my area. No place.
Oh crap, I don't know who that is.
I'm making my
I need you to move though, so I can sit down first.
That's freaking funny. Confirm your friends. Are you serious? The person is.
Katrina, we're going a little bit longer because we started later. Are you both okay going a few more minutes?
Is it like it's gonna be 20 minutes more?
Well, I can cut it down. I can make it about 10 minutes if you want. Is that okay?
However long is fine, yeah. Just as long as it's not like another hour or so.
No. She had originally scheduled 2 hours, and I said that, but we were about 15, 20 minutes late in starting, so I'm just trying to, and they are recording this, so they'll be able to watch it. So I'll, if you guys are okay, I'll start, and tell me, and I'll start with Annabelle, and then I'll go to you, Katrina. Annabelle, what is a wiki?
What?
What is Wiki?
Wiki?
It's okay if you don't know.
Something, type something into and find information on stuff? I don't know. It's a good question.
Katrina?
Yeah, I thought Wiki was Wikipedia as well. It's like where I first start out for most of my searches, if it's about like a person or a history event or something.
That's exactly what it is. The difference is we're going to talk about in the next 10, 15 minutes of how you can create your own wiki. And this, probably the best way to describe it, I'm going to do this 1 second. The best way to describe it is it's a database of information. So I'm going to go through and show you some examples of different wikis, what they are and how to create one. They're very, very simple to do. So an example, Katrina, for you at work would be a reference site of services that, who you work for is the state, is that correct?
Yes.
A list of services, and they may already have this, I'm just using it as an example. Let's say there's 10 different services. The wiki allows me to create a list of those services, and when I click on that, it will give me additional information. It might be text, it might be a video of the services, it might be a map of how to get there. So it's kind of like Wikipedia, but personalized for what you want to do. And then I'll use Annabelle as her example for going back to snowboarding. What she could do is, as her adventure goes on, she could have snowboarding adventures, a list of all the places she went to that she is either going to or has visited, and all the videos with her GoPro that she puts on that she can show other people of the places that she's been to. So you can put graphics, you can put images, you can put documents that are on there to tell a story of all those things. So I'm interested to know, Katrina, you said where you go to all the time. What do you go to Wikipedia for?
Like if I'm reading, sometimes I'll start out in Pinterest like late at night and I'll find like an old like murder story or something. So I'll go to Wikipedia to look up somebody that they listed in the story or a house or, something that had to do with the story.
And years ago, when I say years ago, I mean 10, 12 years ago, Wikipedia was the scourge of education. It's how dare you. That is not factual, but it is so valid now. I mean, it's taken the place of the old encyclopedias. And there are many people that monitor it. So if you want to contribute to it because you found some new information, you can do that, but it's not published until it's checked by 20 or 30 of those sources. So what this allows us to do is to create our own, but the way it works in a classroom is the students are the monitors of it. So a lot of social studies teachers, that's how they do the reports. That's how the science teachers now do a lot of their science projects that are listed on Wikipedia. So I'm going to flip to the presentation and just quickly go through this in about the next 10 minutes and show you a few things. It's designed for collaboration. You get the information. I'm going to show you a picture of it here in just a second. I need to get through each one of these. So this is one that I found that was interesting. There's been 32,000 people that have visited this site. And if it's useful, there's a lot of people that have come. Now, since I do the work with Disney, I thought, well, I wonder if there's a Disney Wiki. Because a lot of people don't know what they are. And sure enough, it came up and said Disney Wiki. And it is a lot of fun. And you, as a mom, Katrina, might find some interesting things that are on here. They've got ideas. They've got craft things to do. Characters. They've got the Disney movies, the Disney TV shows. It's like my grandkids, they have the Disney Channel on all the time with the different shows. And you can see things across the top. Those are the categories, and underneath are the pages. And this basically tells you a little bit about the wiki and what it is. So when you click on any one of these things, you can go to it. It doesn't come out real well, but at the top you can see the Facebook icon and Twitter. So again, that's how you subscribe to the social media to each one of those. So exploring the wiki, this happened to be one on what's on TV. And they were showing some new shows and things that were coming up. And then there were some little videos that were there. Now, some of this sounds a little difficult to do, but it's really simple to do. The question?
What's that? No, we don't have questions.
Okay, sorry. And then here's a lot of the Disney characters. I wanted to see what, and of course, I didn't catch, did you say boys or girls, Katrina?
I've got a girl and a boy.
And the girl is how old?
She's 6. Say hi, Daphne.
She probably knows about Anna and Elsa, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can she sing the song? Let it go?
Did you hear her?
I heard her
yes,
say yes, and I didn't hear it after that.
But I'm not singing it.
Oh, she's not singing. I thought she was going to sing for me because I'm starting to record her if she's going to. But here's all the Disney characters and the different ones that are on there. You can get different things. There's images. There's stories about the character. And you really can't see it. But going down the page, they're alphabetized. There's over 300 characters that are on there that'll tell the story behind the Disney character in the movie. And Baymax, you can see there from the Big Hero 6 movie. There's a list of more characters. And here's the pages that are on the movies. So that's a basic of how it's done for entertainment. Here's a wiki that is done, and you're going to see that these are very specific of what people do. This particular wiki are quotes of Walt Disney. So it's drilling down and being very, very specific, and it has quotes that he said about different topics. And all those things that you see on the left-hand side are links to other places. So you can find information on the front page, but then on the right side, there are images that you can see and speeches and things that he made when he created Mickey Mouse and that type of thing. And on the left side, those are all individual things that pertain to Walt Disney. And you can see here some quotes that he had about Epcot, different years, different times, things that he did. So I'm going to jump ahead because these aren't classroom things for you. Just like the blog, we need to decide what is it about. So, and I'll just keep tagging off. So Annabelle's going to do hers on snowboard. The structure, in other words, when you start putting things on a page, you want to always do and follow through on each page. So maybe it's the title, maybe there's links, maybe there's a video, maybe there's graphics that are there. And what I usually suggest when people do, and when you go to Wiki Spaces, they are free, but there's two catches, and they're not really big gotchas. But if you're an educator, it's free. But you have to be a classroom teacher and have an educational address. Or you can do Wiki Spaces, and it's free, but it has ads in it. Or you can pay a yearly fee with no ads. I think if I'm first starting out, I'm going to do it with the ads just to I see what it's like. And just like the blog, that you post a few things, that you put some of those things up there, and you see how it works. Then you add content, you tell people about it, and I go back to Twitter. This is how you let people know. Hey, we just built the wiki, and Annabelle just took a trip down to Park City in Utah, and guess what? She broke her arm. And we've got video in the GoPro of her and her accident, or whatever it is. Have you ever snowboarded and broken anything?
No.
Oh, it's not a lot of fun. I skied every week when I was living in Colorado, and I hit some ice once and broke my collarbone in 3 places, and it was not a whole lot of fun for about 8 weeks. So you can put all those things in there, but you just want to play with a little bit before you actually go public. And you can make it private. So you can send an email to Katrina and say, hey, here is the pages on the wiki. Take a look. Tell me what you think. So now we're ready to go public. That's where Facebook comes in. Then that's where Twitter comes in. And you send a tweet out. Say, check out our new wiki on Wiki Spaces / my snowboard trip, or whatever you're going to call it. It is really difficult to mess up a wiki. By that I mean when you're creating it. It's pretty straightforward, so don't worry about that part, and add things to it. You can take things away. You can decide. The wiki, the thing that's really different, where in the blog you make comments, what you do in the wiki is you actually edit it. You can add things to it. So I'm going to use Katrina's example for the state, where she has a thing, and I'm going to go back just to the foster family, foster parents. They could actually add some things in there of some other services maybe that they use. And Annabelle, help me out here. Okay, I want to be a foster parent and have foster children stay with me. What are some other services that would be available to me? So I don't know how this works. So in other words, help me along in the process. Where would I go to get information?
Where would the parent go? Where would the foster parent go to get more information about becoming a foster parent? Or
Yes, exactly.
There's a few options. I believe there's a Catholic church that offers a lot of support for foster parents up in Anchorage.
Okay.
That's probably. We also have an office in Ketchcam that actually has a division for adoption, and so that specific social worker would have a lot more information about that.
Okay, so those are the kind of things that you put on the wiki, but in addition to that, if you allow people to edit, and I see something and I know of a service that's in Juneau or some other place, I can go in and edit it and add it to that. Now you as the moderator gets to decide if that gets posted or not. There's a little button that you say, check content before posting. So the wiki allows you to actually change the content, to edit the content. And you can actually change the layout of the page. It depends on what they want to do. So you could say to Annabelle, okay, you're an editor also, and just like in the blog, you're an author. So it allows you to add additional things. The way this really works in schools is when they do a project or research project, used a lot in civics classes, social studies classes, that the students put information in there, kind of along the idea we were talking about with Facebook with George Washington. And what students do is they specifically put incorrect information in there, so the other students read it, and then they make the corrections on it. But you use that more of a positive way, that you allow your readers to add additional things to that. So I've got all of these are links. So if you want to know what they are, how it works, where to do it, the projects and things that you can do on it. This was a wiki, and what I've done is I've put some examples in here for you, and again, they're aimed more at schools, but you can get an idea. This was something interesting on carbon fighters, and it had to do with alternative energy. And these were middle school kids in the 6th grade that were dealing with this topic, and they posted things that were on here and presented the information and allowed other classes in the school to put additional information in there. This again applies to schools. There's a thing called a rubric, so how the students are graded on there and the information that they put on that particular piece. One that you ladies might be interested in, this is called Wiki Woman, and she talked about how she used a wiki and how it really changed things of how she was teaching in the classroom. And I enjoyed it because she called herself Wiki Woman. And she talked about traditional teaching and what it was like, and how it was just mayhem in her classroom, and how she kind of stopped giving the lectures and turned the learning over to the kids and giving them creative projects. Very, very interesting piece. And then other teachers commented on that and edited along with it. Then I'm going to jump ahead on a couple more of these here. These are lesson plan ideas, but it might help you kind of get started on some of these things to put some of the wikis together. And then I've got some examples in here of the best educational wikis. Every year they give those. And the reason even though you're not in education, the reason I have these on here is it gives you an idea of what is really good wiki content. This is a English as a second language class that is done in, just went away. I believe it's Czechoslovakia. And to me, it was a little gaudy, but these were 5th grade, I believe it was 5th grade students that were doing it. And they had all kinds of things in there, and they let other classes contribute, and they had English lessons in there of learning English as a second language. And these are some of the things that they had. They did a lot of things with princesses. All those things that you see there are designs that the kids did and built some of those and took graphics and put those things together. And they had a dress-up day. That's why she's dressed as a little princess that was there. And then I added all of these in here for different ones that have been nominated over the years on wikis. And those are available. And here's another one in the English classroom. And then these are some resources for history teachers. And there's about 5 more slides that are in there, but I'm going to switch back here. And let me give you a couple of different emails and addresses where you can get some things, and then we'll wrap up with a couple questions. My email is howie@frontier.net, HOWIE, at Frontier, FRONTIER.net. And if you would like these copies of these 3, send me an email, and I will send you to the web page that has that. And they will be available tomorrow. It's on a web page that I have called drhowie.com, and you will see these 3 tomorrow. It will say IVC, video conference, webinar, and it will say Twitter, blogs, and wikis. There's 3 presentations. So I would like to thank both of you for hanging in here for the last couple hours. unfortunately, Darcia had set this up, and she was going to be the main connection, but I'm sure glad that you guys signed up, so hopefully we have some useful things. I thoroughly enjoyed the time getting to know you in this short amount of time, and I'll throw it back to you and see if you got any final questions.
I don't have any final questions, but this was a lot of really good information, so thank you.
Yes.
Well, and if you want, I don't know how it works, but you could contact Craig is at your state video conferencing service. His name is Craig Skidmore, and it's called Online with Libraries. Craig Skidmore. So you could probably, if you send me an email, I can send you his contact information.
Okay.
And then he could tell you more. So I do the best that I can, given the distance of a couple thousand miles, but try to make it interactive and involve you. So I hope I did that and hope you enjoyed the time that we had together.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, thank you. You ladies have a great day, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
All right, thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.